Getting home from work alive is generally an expectation that most of us have. But for some people in New Zealand, for some families, their loved one goes off to work in the morning and doesn't come home in the evening. And this is generally because of an accident or some failure in health and safety procedures that has meant that that person has been killed during their work. Health and safety is all about keeping yourself and others safe, and to a lesser extent, gear and equipment and your workplace free from damage. All of these things can have a marked effect on your employment and your future. So it's important that we all work in a safe manner and in a safe environment. Don't be this guy. That's the guy in the pink shirt. If you see someone like this on a site that you're on, give them a stern talking to. Take them to the office. Make them sign in and make them follow the rules. The rules are there for everyone. Just because you are more or feel more important than everyone else doesn't mean the rules don't apply to you. The rules are there for everybody to follow closely so that we all get home safe at the end of the working day. We are all responsible for health and safety. It's an issue that we all need to work on. Now, the famous thinker, Einstein, he had a few things to say about this, as shown in this poster here. And I can assure you that the infinite nature of human stupidity is there to be observed on a daily basis. The construction site is a site where all manner of things can happen. It's important that it be organised, that we think about what we're doing, that the strategies that we use apply to everybody, that everyone knows what's going on, so that we can all get home at the end of the day alive and safe and undamaged. And our work site and tools and equipment also make it through as well. These are not insignificant factors that we need to pay attention to and think about at all times. Not just for a few minutes here and there or while we fill out the form, but all day. There's a famous sign that's shown on a lot of work sites that says, "The standard you walk past is the standard you accept." If you see someone not acting in a safe manner, it's your responsibility to make sure that they do, to report them and to sort it out so that everybody is safe. This sign here, from a very succinct sign: no hat, no boots, no vest, no job. If you don't want to follow the rules, you will find yourself without a job. Follow the rules, keep yourself safe and everybody else safe, and wear the appropriate PPE at all times in the manner that is you are supposed to, and you will maintain your job. If you don't, consequences are that you could have no job for a number of reasons. Perhaps your job might blow up because of it's unsafe or something like that, but it's important that you follow the rules and have a health and safety consciousness about yourself. Now, hazards, identifying hazards is the crux of health and safety, and hazards come in many shapes and forms. They can come from be activity-based, situation-based. Occurrence, because you're working away and travelling big hours and long distances, can cause tiredness and fatigue. By the actual arrangement, by the height of a building, working at height has its risks associated with it and particular hazards. Lightning strikes and thunderstorms and things like that, we need to be aware of what to do in these situations. Circumstance can put us in hazards, particularly in a busy highway, or using a laser can be related to the process that we're doing. We must identify these hazards and take care to ensure that we can control them. So the first thing to do is to identify the hazard, and then having identified the hazard, we can go through this little flowchart thing here. Now, if first thing we should look to do is, can we eliminate the hazards? So if we say, for instance, we're looking at overhead power lines, can we eliminate those hazards? No, we can't. Can we isolate the hazard? Well, that's a possibility. We may be able to not work under the power lines. But if, say, for instance, in a survey situation, we do have to work under the power lines, we can't isolate it. But can we minimise it? Well, yes, we can in the case of power lines, and particularly down at Greaton Park, where we're perhaps going to have a look. Now, surveyors sometimes use a 5 metre high levelling staff, which could easily, being aluminium, come in contact with overhead wires and cause electrocution. How can we minimise that? Well, one of the things that we can do is actually remove the leaves of the staff telescopes, so we can just ensure that we only use a staff that's 2 metres tall, thereby minimising the hazard, and that is our control. We are controlling it by minimisation. If, however, we cannot eliminate, isolate or minimise a hazard, you must stop work until a solution is identified. And this may require consultation with people who perhaps have more knowledge of the situation than you do. But do not continue to work in a situation where you have identified a hazard and you can neither eliminate, isolate or minimise it, and you're continuing to work. Because legally the implications could fall on you, and if someone were to be killed, you could be in serious trouble with the law. Now, one of the things that we do, and I've shown videos on this, is we can complete a task analysis sheet for each scenario, where we go through and identify the hazards and identify how we might eliminate, isolate or minimise the hazard. If, however, we can't do one of those things, well, we may have to just carry on and stop the job and then move on from there. So the first scenario that I'd want you to consider is a topographical survey of a new building on the Windermere campus. So that's just immediately around us. Obviously we're going to have students wandering around. A topographical survey would involve survey equipment and probably a person with a pole or possibly a large staff walking around the campus. So that's scenario 1. Scenario 2 is to set out lift pegs for the upgrade of a 2-kilometre section of rural road. Now, you may have seen a road under construction and they have every 20 metres or so stakes either side, which are called lift pegs, and from them they are able to string out and set out the profile of the road, the crown and the camber. And these lift pegs have to be set out by surveyors working in reasonably close proximity to the road on a rural road. Now, rural roads, it could be gravel or seal, are generally low volume in the sense that there's not as many cars as on a main highway. But nonetheless, a number of cars, and at some particular parts of the day there can be quite a lot of traffic. The third scenario is just a land title survey of the boundary of a rural bush covenant adjoining a forest. So we're looking at something quite isolated here, a rural bush covenant adjoining a forest. So we're going to be doing a task analysis sheet for these, and sheets will be provided for you where you can perhaps identify first of all what sort of work you're going to be doing, and what hazards might be present, and how you might isolate, eliminate or minimize those hazards. And finally, the fourth one is a control survey for the monitoring of a highway overpass. So we're talking here about quite a busy highway. It's an overpass. We could be working at height, and it's a control survey. So generally we're set up over marks. We're not wandering around with poles and things. We're just setting bits of equipment up and measuring to them. So there's some scenarios that we'll be looking at in this health and safety session, but just remember that the main thing is stay safe out there, so that you can ensure that you and your workmates get home of an evening and can enjoy the fruits of your labour.